So, big thing we're talking about in this video is what's going on with Turo's review system. So you know it's changed, but you don't exactly know what the change means, how it's going to affect your business, and how are you going to navigate it moving forward. Now, that's going to be the main purpose here. And for those of you that are new to this channel, my name's Peter, been in the car rental business for the last 4.5 years, have a fleet of over 50 vehicles based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you know how you can tell that I'm from Pittsburgh? It's because I'm wearing a scarf today, because it's cold, but it's not necessarily freezing. It's a perfect weather for a scarf. But let's get into this. So the main part of this video is I want to break down, okay, what was the old review system like and what exactly was changed for the new system? And specifically we're going to talk about, because they just made the change here for 2025. So let's talk about what was the old system. How did guests used to leave reviews? And how did it impact your account? So the first thing is we'll put Turo review system. Then let's go over the main points. So first point was the overall rental experience. Now, when we're talking about overall rental experience, it was basically just guests saying, what did they think about the trip overall, right? Did they have a good experience? Did they not have a good experience? And this was between a 1 to 5 star. So a 1 to 5 star rating that they could give you on. What was the second thing that they rated you on? So specifically, it was host communication. Forgive my handwriting, my wonderful channel is never necessarily my strong suit, but sometimes I know a visual system kind of helps people a little bit more to understand things. And then the third thing was basically vehicle condition and cleanliness. And again, all of these were 1 to 5 stars. So host communication, were you actually communicating with your guests about things that were happening with the vehicle, or if they had a question, did you respond? Vehicle condition and cleanliness, this was more so among like, was the vehicle properly maintained when they got it? Was it clean, vacuumed, went through the wash, the whole ordeal? So this is what the system used to look like, right? Now, some of the things that are going to be, and I'm gonna attach this too in the video as well, because I want you guys to be looking at the same thing that I'm looking at, which is basically on their website, where the big thing that they're changing is that they're adding a lot more categories. Specifically, I'm going to go over the categories, and then I also want to go over, okay, another big thing that they changed is what criteria do you have to meet to be able to be an all-star host? That's kind of the format that I want to follow moving forward here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, okay, this is the review system on the old side. We'll get to the part about the all-star host. Now, we're going to go review system new. So now one thing that they added in specifically is a maintenance metric, which is going to be separate from this vehicle condition and cleanliness. Cleanliness metric is going to be something that's separate as well. So what's interesting is that basically these two used to be grouped into the one, and this is something where they're separating them to where they're going to be their own categories. And again, I'm going to get into this a little bit later into why they're separating them and how does that impact being an all-star host. But for now, we'll keep going through the list of the different things that the host is going to be actually looking at. So these, and I have the notes pulled up on Turo's website, so I want to make sure I'm giving you guys the most accurate information. This is what they're giving us. Now, this is what it was for the old system. Here's what it is for the new system, which basically what everybody's looking at is like, oh, it's really not that different. They basically just split this into two of its separate categories, and they took out this host communication. Where the big part of the change is going to be here, so there's actually going to be two parts to this change. One is going to be, what are the qualifications for the all-star host? The second one, which people are a little bit nervous about, is Turo's going to be able to unlist your vehicle if you're not meeting a certain criteria for these categories. So the first thing that we want to talk about, because this is going to apply to everybody, which is what metrics do you need to maintain for Turo to be happy with you so that your vehicle doesn't get taken down? So that's where we'll put a little line here and we'll put metrics to maintain. So we'll have the metrics here that need to be maintained. Now, for this again, and I'm going to have this pulled up because I want to make sure that you guys can see exactly what's going to be going on here. So the very first thing that I want to break down is this maintenance requirement. So to break down it for maintenance, basically the new way that this is going to work is that you have to maintain at least a 30% 5-star review rating in the last of your 10 trips. Now, I know that sounds complicated because I just read it word for word from Turo's website. So I'm going to break it down for how it made sense to me. So basically the way that this works is, let's say that your vehicle went out on 10 trips, right? So we'll use my favorite example. Say you got a 2019 Mitsubishi Mirage. January, car went out on 10 trips. So what this means is that out of these 10 trips, at least 3 of them had to give you a 5-star review. If 3 of them did not give you a 5-star review and they gave you less, then Turo can actually delist your vehicle specifically under this maintenance category. Now, a big question that we get here, which is going to be, well, what if I had 10 trips and no reviews? I didn't get any. Well, if you didn't get any reviews, now Turo did put specifically on their website, and when we went to the Power Host event, that they found when guests don't leave reviews, then it means that they had a negative experience. So Turo, from a no review standpoint, they're not necessarily gonna hurt you, but it's not gonna help you. It's still gonna be based on how many people actually left. So I'm gonna give you guys an example. Let's say with that same Mitsubishi Mirage, it had 10 trips. Out of the 10 trips, you had 5 people. So you had 5 people that left you 5-star reviews. And the other 5 didn't leave you a review at all. What this shows is that that means you would have a 50% overall of a 5-star rating, which is basically going to keep your car in good standing. It'll basically give you, like, that your car's in the yellow. It's not in the red, it's not in the green. Turo's standard specifically for this is that if you're above 60% of 5-star reviews, then you're in the green. So that's kind of going to be the first thing to understand, that how it's going to work. This is for the maintenance system specifically, for what you have to maintain for your vehicle to not get delisted. So remember, 30% of your trips, so if you have 10, 3 of them need to leave you 5 stars. If they don't, then unfortunately your vehicle could be delisted. That's the first part that I wanted to go over. Second thing that I mentioned earlier on in this video is, how do the criteria now for the all-star host status change? And for those of you that are unfamiliar or a little bit newer to the Turo system, basically the all-star host is saying that you are the cream of the crop when it comes to host on the platform. You get a special badge. It also pushes your cars up in the algorithm for people that do not have the all-star host. So now let's go over that, because that's also something that's important. So I hope this makes sense and you guys have a general understanding of how the review system works and some of the things that are changing. Now we'll move on specifically to what it's going to look like for the all-star host status. Listen, guys, I know this is a little bit more of an in-depth video, but it's a big change that was made, and it's definitely something that George and I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of, so that you can make the appropriate changes here in the future. So now let's talk about what's changing on the all-star host status. So we'll put all-star host. So we will do, instead of here or there, we'll do it both on this side. So we'll do old and new. So before, to be an all-star host, the first thing that you had to have is you had to maintain, so a 90% 5-star rating on rated trips. That was part 1. You had to have a 5-star overall rating, or basically out of everybody that left you a review, because I'm going to tell you guys the way that makes sense in my head, because the way that Turo puts it, it's kind of confusing. So it's basically saying, hey, out of all of the reviews that you got, 90% of them had to be a 5-star rating. That was one of the main criterias when it came to being an all-star host. And the way that I'm going to list this so that it makes sense for you guys, if there is no category before and there is a category now, I'm basically going to list it as in like cleanliness nothing or maintenance nothing for that. So that'll be 2, which will be there was no cleanliness, no maintenance metric, and of a 95% commitment rate, 5, 10 completed trips, make that a small one, 6, 90% acceptance rate, and a 90% response rate. Okay, so now to go over all these metrics, okay, we went over the 90% 5-star. There was no cleaning metric, no maintenance metric. When it comes to the commitment rate, this is basically just saying that let's just say that you went through with the trip, you had to have a total of 10 completed trips. For the 90% acceptance rate, this is saying that you are basically accepting trips 90% of the time. So if you have 10 that come through, you're accepting 9 consistently, and a 90% response rate, which is basically saying that you're responding to, if you have 10 people that are messaging you, you're responding to 9 of them. So these were the old metrics for what you had to have to be an all-star host. Let's talk about what are the new metrics, which again, you guys are going to have to bear with me because it's going to be a little bit challenging, but I'm going to try to explain it in the best way that I can. So 1, now we need to have an 85% overall. I'm going to show you guys this too, what I'm looking at that's on Turo's website, because it's just their wording is weird. Overall 5-star rating on all completed trips. What does this mean? So before, we know that the way that it worked is that they were saying if you had 10 trips that people rated, 90% of them had to be 5 stars. The new system now is saying that you need to have 85% or an 85%, better way to explain this actually, with let's say that you have 10 trips that come through. I don't like the 85 number, but we'll round it up to 9. 85% is saying that you would need 9 people to leave you a 5-star review in order to get that all-star host status. What is the main difference here? Just to highlight it so you guys understand. Here, it's based off of the fact that if you had 10 trips that were rated, 9 of them had to be 10 stars. Now you have 10 trips in total, 9 of them have to be rated as 5 stars in general. So it is a little bit more a challenge. Now, the other 2 things is that this is going to be same kind of metric, but a little bit different, which is going to be 85% here, which is the same of the overall 5-star rating for the cleanliness metric. You also need an 85% for the maintenance metric too. Okay, now what's changed here is when it comes to the commitment rate, they changed it where there's a 3%, or you need to maintain a 3% or lower cancellation rate. What does this mean? So this means, look, you get 100 trips that come through. Let's say you get 100 trips that happen for one of the vehicles in a year. This means that out of 100 trips, you have to cancel less than 3 of them to be able to meet the new criteria to be an all-star host. Now, they did change this where instead of 10 completed trips, now it's 20 trips. So they did double the amount of trips that need to happen for you to get this. So this is something that's now changed. In regards to acceptance rate and response rate, so now with acceptance rate, all trips are accepted. So you don't get to decide if you want to take a trip or not. So now, all the trips are taken. Next thing as well, this kind of figures into both of these two. So it's like all the trips are accepted, which basically means that you got to respond to the majority of them. So where people are worried, and it is something that's nerve-wracking, now out of the trips that you get, you basically need people to leave reviews in order to maintain the all-star host. Now, this is going to have its pros and its cons. Cons are the majority of people are going to lose that status. So when you see all-star host, you know that that's somebody that really has a pretty amazing fleet. These metrics are going to be tough to hit, and we're going to make another video to show you guys how exactly we're adjusting to it. What I wanted to basically portray in this video, which is what we went over, is okay, what was the review system? How did it change? Which we had the old and the new that was posted up there so you guys could see what was happening. The second thing is what exactly is changing with the All-Star host system. Basically, how could I make it so that it made sense for you guys? Because again, you can go look at all this. It's all on Turo's website. In my opinion, it is pretty confusing because even me reading about it, like George and I have been looking at this ever since last year. They announced this, I guess around like September, October, that they were making these changes for January. And the wording and everything has changed. So this is the way that I understand it. And I hope that it makes sense for you guys as well. So the last part of this is to give you guys an idea. We do have a way that we can help you for how to handle all of the nuances of this. George and I are extremely particular in who we work with. So if you are interested in having somebody walk you through this process and to implement the strategy that we're implementing, I want you to go to carrentalcoach.com. Fill out our 60-second survey. If you're qualified to work with us, then me or somebody from my team will get on a call with you personally. We'll evaluate your market, your situation, the resources, see if there's a way that this business can actually work for you. If it can, then we'll see if there's a way that we can help you. But besides that, definitely want you guys to go and click on our next video, because the big thing that we're going to be explaining is that it's okay, now that you have more cars, how do you really scale this to the next level, get staff, get the proper SOPs in play, and how you can scale your business.